With a new chapter of Boruto 2 Blue Vortex out in full steam, we finally have some more information on what has been one of the most mysterious jutsu that has come out in recent years, Rasengan Uzuhiko. This jutsu first debuted in chapter 2 of the manga with this legendary panel of Boruto walking straight at Code with the signature spiral-like aura forming around Boruto as he readies this devastating jutsu. And while we thought we had some idea of what the jutsu did, as the effects were explained by Boruto when it successfully landed against Code, we really only scratched the surface of this jutsu's supposed limitless power. So today, let's discuss these new findings and perhaps speculate a bit about where this jutsu will take us as we anxiously await the next chapter of 2 Blue Vortex. If you're not following the Boruto manga, I highly suggest doing so. Uzuhiko is Boruto's signature jutsu and the newest form of the Rasengan that has been unveiled, in the seemingly never-ending list of ways Kishimoto has made the Rasengan great again. The way it works is a bit complicated, and I'll be making a full breakdown on how the jutsu works in a later video, but the long and short of it is, Boruto gathers planetary energy through his feet, which means he has to be in contact with the ground, and depending on how much time he has to gather will determine the damage it does. Boruto even states that as long as he doesn't hold back, Rasengan Uzuhiko is effectively an infinitely powerful jutsu, the only caveat being that Boruto is required to gather sufficient energy. We'll talk more on that in a bit. Unlike Minato's original Rasengan, the damage it does isn't purely physical. Instead, what it does is force the planetary energy into the opponent and inflicts incredibly debilitating internal damage, leaving the target in a perpetual state of vertigo forever. Yeah, you heard me. The effects of this jutsu last until Boruto either cancels its effects or the planet itself stops spinning. So yeah, effectively forever. And that was with Boruto having gathered just for a few moments and it completely stopped the limiter released Code with one attack. Moving forward to the second use of this jutsu in the most recent chapter, and Boruto completely decimates Hidari in one blow and what Boruto describes as the imperfect version of this jutsu. When Boruto launches the jutsu and connects with Hidari, after again only gathering the planetary energy for just a few moments, is able to create a whirling vortex of chakra that was at least as large as Naruto's Rasen Shuriken, if not larger, when it swirled into the spiraling tower. And let me just say that Hidari is no pushover. He's a sentient god tree created by the fusion of Sasuke's chakra and the Ten Tails, and Uzuhiko completely annihilated him in one blow, leaving him as basically fodder to Kawaki just a few moments later. So to recount, this jutsu has stopped every single opponent it has successfully landed against, and Boruto, with the use of Hirai Shin and his incredible speed and agility, seemingly has no issues with landing it, which was Naruto's biggest issue with the utilization of the original Rasengan. Naruto wasn't particularly fast until he unlocked Kurama mode and Sage mode, nor did he have a wide array of jutsu to make it easier to land any of his Rasengan variants, so he relied on raw power and a huge radius of attack to land his blows, focusing more on the ability to land the attack in favor of devastating effects when it is landed. That was until Rasen Shuriken came about and every single one of his opponents absorbed chakra or were just immune to damage, so the comparison isn't exact, but you get what I mean. Boruto doesn't have these problems and has instead focused his efforts on how much damage he can inflict when the jutsu is successfully landed, due to his confidence in being able to connect with the jutsu. The differences are subtle between Naruto and Boruto's versions, but as a legacy fan of the Naruto-Boruto series, I appreciate there being an effort in making these two very similar characters in jutsu feel different in both ideology and general design, so bravo to Kishimoto in that regard. So basically that's what Uzuhiko does, as far as we currently know. And what's interesting about this jutsu is that it's characteristic of both of Boruto's family lineages, or all three if you count the Otsutsuki now. The way that Uzuhiko does internal damage to the opponent is strikingly similar to how the Gentle Fist of the Hyuga clan works, effectively injecting chakra into the opponent to cause internal damage. And while it's a bit speculative at the moment, it can be inferred that Boruto has very precise control of his Tenketsu, which allows him to gather planetary energy through his feet and use it to create Rasengan Uzuhiko. How these two jutsu mirror one another really makes me think that Boruto is finally tapping into some of his Hyuga blood and accessing some knowledge of their techniques, styles, and ideologies. I love the idea that it's technically possible for Boruto to reimagine the famous but sort of forgotten techniques of the Hyuga clan, like the 8 trigrams rotation, one body blow, vacuum palm, and many others, and apply the principles of Uzuhiko to them, effectively reviving the more or less forgotten Hyuga clan. I really do think that as time passes, we'll find that a lot of the inspiration for this new jutsu was created on the basis of Boruto spending the entire time skip thinking about how his parents are lost in an infinite void. That kind of determination to save the people you love most has always been shown in anime to create some spectacular techniques, and I don't think that this will be any different. This leads me to Naruto. His influence in the technique is obvious, but what I think Naruto will most likely contribute to the development of the technique in the future is either directly teaching or in some way influencing how Boruto gathers planetary energy moving forward. If we think back to Naruto's progression of Sage Mode, which has been compared to this technique quite a bit, considering it is performed by gathering some kind of energy that is found in nature, he first started to access it by sitting down, connected to the earth, and absorbing the natural energy directly, with having to be completely still as his only limitation. Fast forward a bit, and what does he do to mitigate this incredible drawback? Shadow clones. It has been shown already that clones can transfer energy from one body to the next, so why should Uzuhiko be any different? I genuinely think that in time, Boruto will be using clones to gather this planetary energy without being limited to the touching grass requirement that it currently has. Finally, that leads me to his Otsutsuki lineage, and this one is a bit interesting. Boruto remarks when Code is suffering from the effects of Uzuhiko that this technique is sort of the planet's way of giving payback for trying to destroy it. But the real irony of the jutsu is that Boruto sort of unknowingly is doing exactly what Code, Momoshiki, and the Otsutsuki in general are hellbent on doing, absorbing the planet's energy, condensing it into a sphere, and utilizing it to their benefit. It's almost a one-to-one comparison in how this situation is manifested. And I'm not saying necessarily that Boruto is becoming an Otsutsuki unknowingly and following their practice, but the fact that he's completely unaware of the irony of this situation is at least interesting. But to finish the parallels between Sage Mode and Uzuhiko, the final progression of Naruto gathering natural energy was having Kurama do it. And for Boruto, his equivalent is Momoshiki, an Otsutsuki, someone who would happily siphon the energy of the planet to utilize for his own devices. I don't know if this will mean some sort of partnership between Boruto and Momoshiki, or, much like Naruto did with Kurama, there would be some way for Boruto to use Momoshiki's power without there being a risk of him slipping out, like when Naruto utilized the Tori Gates to first unlock Nine-Tails Chakra Mode. Now, whether you choose to believe that Naruto will end up using shadow clones or in some way utilize Momoshiki to gather the planetary energy really doesn't matter when the result is Boruto will gain access to a jutsu with limitless potential for destructive power, something we've really not seen outside of Shinjutsu. Which is a bit interesting to consider because what happens when you give your protagonist an infinitely scaling jutsu and a means to mitigate all of its drawbacks? I'm actually most interested to see what Jura and the other sentients do to counter it. Say what you want about Boruto, but I think it's really captivating that there are so many parallels and rabbit holes to go down when thinking about just another Rasengan variant, and thinking back to what Naruto was able to develop after his time skip with Jiraiya, just a slightly larger Rasengan. So the fact that we have this incredibly interesting jutsu should really open some eyes to how good 2 Blue Vortex can and will be. If you're on the fence about starting this manga, please give it a try. That's all for me today. Thanks for watching. Peace.